Low effort video time. This is my old Canon printer. It is going to e-waste. Before it goes, let's rip it apart and see what there is that's interesting in it. So yeah, I got this thing at the beginning of lockdown because I'd lost access to my work printers and scanners and I urgently needed one. It's a Maxify MB5150 and I hate it and I want it out of my life. It works fine as a scanner. It's got a flatbed scanner and a reasonably effective document feeder, but the printing mechanism is extremely picky. I just don't print enough for it to work properly and it gets gummed up with ink. And the second last time it did this, it demanded a whole set of new ink cartridges, which I got it, and it printed 3 pages, and then it demanded another set of new ink cartridges, and at the same time it peed quite a lot of ink all over my shelving unit. So I've replaced this with a proper Brother color laser printer, and this is going away. I can't sell it because it's broken, and frankly I wouldn't wish it on anyone. What I expect to find in here is some motors and actuators and some bits of glass and LEDs and a whole lot of cheap plastic gears. So anyway, the good news is that there's no risk of breaking it because it's already broken. That seems to want to come loose. There doesn't seem to be a screw this side. This thing is on my dining room table as it's too big to fit on my workbench, which is also why I sound funny because I'm not using the nice microphone. It feels extremely plasticky. It was surprisingly cheap, only about like 150 francs, something like that. And honestly, the build quality does feel very much like it. Okay, I'm missing something. There's a feature I never spotted before. This piece comes up. It's so that I can put really thick pieces of paper down and the lid goes flat. It doesn't feel great, but it's there. I am a little bit nervous about tipping it up in case it spills ink somewhere, but I think I need to see if there are any screws. There's a rubber foot with an arrow pointing at it. And the arrow usually means there's a fixing screw underneath it, so it lied. There is no fixing screw under there. And this bit just ripped off with force. What is there? A motor, bit of a metal framework, another motor. Yeah, let's take the other side off. I may have mentioned on this channel how much I hate plastic clips. Well, this is one reason why. Now, what have we got? We've got a Wi-Fi module in its very characteristic metal can, and a PCB where most of the interesting stuff is on the back. Gears, interesting gears, I'll have them. A loudspeaker. That's an actual loudspeaker. It's not a pizza squeaker. Interesting. This side has the motors that presumably move all the moving bits. And there's some signs of screws here, so I think we can get more of the shell off. It's fastened down good and hard over here, so there may be another screw in there. Yep, it comes off, revealing some more very flimsy stuff. Right, that wasn't the right way to remove this. That's broken some of these plastic bits, but as I may have mentioned before, I don't care. So this has revealed the print head mechanism and the ink cartridges, and this is the eject slot for the cartridges. So let's see what they are actually on camera. Let's remove those. And these there. That is dripping pure yellow. Black. Oops. They will only eject if they're in this position. When the printer turns itself off, it locks the print head over here, which is not doing it now, but in order to release it you have to reach in under here and twiddle a gear, which I can't find. Yeah, it's not great. It really wants you to have the thing turned on so that it will move the head to the right place to remove each ink cartridge. But when it gets sufficiently confused, it won't turn on that much. And as a result, it just gets itself wedged and you can't do anything with it. It's a really stupid piece of design. Ah, now this has locked. That's the gear. Now I can push this and it will slide this. Okay, I'm going to find some bags to put those cartridges in before they dribble ink everywhere. Sandwich bags, you can never go wrong with sandwich bags. That one has smeared some yellow around, so let's put the bag inside another bag. I wonder if there's anything interesting I can do with inkjet ink. The stuff is terrifyingly expensive. I don't know if it's still true, but for a while, gram for gram, it was more expensive than heroin. And this is dribbling black. Okay, what's next? Well, I still want to get this top thing off, and I would also rather like to remove this lid because it keeps falling on me. If the mechanism, it's this weird combination of incredibly flimsy and... Oh, I didn't do anything there. That just came apart in my hand. Right, you just push it sideways and it unclips. That's brilliant. Right, this one, I can see it's got the ribbon cables in it, so this will be a little bit more complicated. This is the ribbon cable. You can see it moving here when I tug on it. There's some screws up the top, so let's see if these do anything. The lid has the page feeder in it, so there's actually going to be quite a lot of mechanics and some electronics in here. Also, I completely forgot, but all of this is on the lid. I do wonder, is the computer in here or is the computer here? Well, we're going to find out. That screw didn't really seem to do much. It's just the slidey mechanism for the paper tray. This is a foldy down flap thing. There are no screws on the inside of the lid, but there are a lot of slots with little arrows attached to them. So what happens if I stick a screwdriver in there? Nothing. My screwdriver isn't long enough. but these are probably where the various disassembly clips are. Yeah, when in doubt, brute force. We've got some gears, rather nice gears actually, a little motor. This is the paper feeder, I bet, and the ribbon cables go on under there, and I bet they go to the computer. So I think we need to rip the other side off. It's solidly fastened down here. So can we go in from this side? That slot is molded. It doesn't actually do anything. This is all one piece. I can probably remove this mechanism. I can see in the crack large pieces of white plastic that I think is the bottom of the control panel. But the blaster thing will still not come out. Okay, I've got some pokey things, so let's try poking. Is there anything pokeable in here? Doesn't feel like it. There's something. No, I don't think that's helping. Well, this might give us an idea of what's going on. Here's the bit that was holding it down, which is interesting. That spike is nowhere near the slot on the underside. But here is a clip. There is a slot just underneath it. So, right. Now I know how that works. I think I can do that. There we go. Right, well that wasn't elegant, but there is the control panel. One ribbon cable has already ripped free. That's okay, that's a friction fit. This is a fold-up clip. And what have we got? We've got a big chunky chip that looks like a microcontroller and some stuff that can be looked at elsewhere. So here we finally have some screws. There's a screw in there where it's not accessible. Or is it? It is accessible. The lighting in here is not great. There's a reason why I usually do stuff on the workbench. Ah, just the one screw. Oh, there's another one this side, but I found it and took it out. Okay, another piece of miscellaneous plastic. And this reveals one of the hinge mechanisms, which is intriguing. This one seems to have fallen off its mount completely. We've got the ribbon cable with, yes, zigzag strain relief and glue. And on this side we've got the ribbon cable to this board and the ribbon cable to, don't know where that's going. It's going in here behind all this slot. This bit comes off. Ah, I know what that other ribbon cable was. So this thing has duplex scanning, and this is the scanner and light bar for the top of the paper, and there's another one underneath for the bottom of the paper. so it can scan both sides simultaneously as the thing goes past. So, oh, random piece of plastic falling off, always nice to see. That holds that minuscule piece of plastic on that presumably did something important. So what holds this black piece of plastic onto the white thing? Don't see any more screws. Is it clipped? Yes, there's a clip in here, like so. Another one here. There we go. And it still doesn't come apart. It looks like it's fastened down from this side somewhere. Okay. That's removed the scanner bar. Oops. That was a spring. There's another spring. Have those. I couldn't find the clips to actually properly remove the scanner bar, so I just broke them. But we do at least have the scanner bar. Sadly, I bet there's nothing whatsoever I can do with this. Which is a shame, as it's a very high resolution one-dimensional camera. And underneath the scanner bar is revealed lots of little broken pieces of white plastic. This thing, which pushes the paper down against the platen, which is that piece of glass, another piece of broken plastic. There's some holes here, but only this one had a screw in it, and I've taken that out. But there's holes here for screws. And has that achieved anything? Apparently not. What is this thing held together with? One more screw here. There we go. So that piece of plastic comes out. It's got a bunch of weird springy things. These look like switches, some rubber strips, the fold out bit for the paper tray, and the slide in and out thing for the paper width. And what do we have in here? We have some rather short cables. The earthing wire. I suppose one advantage of making everything out of cheap plastic is it doesn't need earthing. There we go. It is now unplugged. What have we got? We have some optical sensors. There's one there, that was the weird springy thing on the piece of plastic I threw away. And there's one here. This piece of plastic blocks a presumably infrared LED and a sensor. So these are certainly worth salvaging. Yeah, two neat little boards, each with the sensor mechanism on them. Are they identical? No, not quite. In terms of this thing, the metal rods are definitely worth having, and all the gears. Yeah, let's put that aside for later. Now we've got the lid, we should now be able to remove all these ribbon cables. Some of them are glued down, and one more wire. This wire was connected to the motor board here. So presumably it's too high current for a ribbon cable, and it's got a big chunky ferrite bead here. Can I There we go. The earth wire. Right, and now that bit comes loose. There's some more springs and geary stuff there, so let's just set that aside. But I won't set it aside there because that's getting in the way. Okay, now I can get at the screws here, so maybe you can take the top lid off. And I think that was a plastic clip before I broke it. Right, what have we got here? It's a piece of plastic with two nice slabs of glass that if I can figure out how to get off, I will get off. They are taped down. The simplest thing to do is lever them, but that tends not to work very well with glass. Okay, set aside for later. And what have we got in here? Well, this is the scanner bar. When you're doing flatbed scanning, this thing... it's a bad noise. This thing moves up and down. When you're doing paper feeder scanning, this thing moves up to this side, and it is the other scanner bar that this one matches. So they go like that, the paper goes through the middle, and it scans both sides simultaneously. And this just sits on a greased bar, which is plastic. There's a lot of plastic in this thing. Over here we've got the thing. This works the eject button for the ink cartridges. And I think this bit was integral to it. And now it may not work anymore. Oh no, that's worked. See, that's now locked because that thing has fallen down. So if I rotate this, now it presses. Okay, that's cool. Now I know how that works. What's this? This is a switch. I don't think that piece of plastic I just threw away is the thing that pushes the switch. Oh, it's the lid close switch for this bit. A bit pushes through here and toggles this thing. Okay. Well, I'm having that. I wonder, how did they put this thing together? Is it done by hand? Some of this seems too fiddly for a machine, but it's such a low value item. The wire here is actually cleverly knotted around a little T-post in such a way that you can tighten the knot by just pushing the loop over and pulling, but you can't actually loosen the knot very easily. So that then connects to the main board. Let me adjust the camera. In here is a very small electric motor which very slowly winds the bar up and down. This is what actually moves this. Now I do remember noticing that the bar moves very slowly. It takes forever to do a flatbed scan. And the fact that this motor is so absurdly small is probably a contributing factor. Okay, let's break the belt unit. This is the power end, which I'm aware that you can see nothing of. Here we go, and it just lifts out. Tiny motor. Oh, that's very cool. An optical encoder. I don't see any markings on the encoder wheel, so it could be infrared, or it could just be too fine to see. Anyway, that is cool and worth having. Meanwhile, at this side, now there's no tension on the belt. This just lifts off, and we have another camera sensor bar. Again, I doubt very much there's anything I can do with it, which is a shame. And this is the first piece of metal in the structure of this thing. Okay, this top unit feels like it wants to come off. I'm going to get a lot of ribbon cables out of this thing. I bet none of them are useful sizes for anything. The thing is slowly drifting on the table, so let me just move everything to be a little bit more centered. Here we go. Here, there's a... oh, it's the tensioner wheel for the belt. It's just a little pulley, no teeth, on a spring. That's cool. So what we got left? Well, this thing is going to be a pain because of the huge ferrite core. So where's the bottom of this wire? There's the big earth wire, and there's the blue and black wire that drove the motor board. And there's a PCB in here that I bet is the power controller board for the motors. And this is wound around a sort of maze thing that I'm having to do by feel. It's more of these weird T-bar things. There we go. Problem solved. And here's the end of the blue wire. So, there we go. This will pull through. Oh no, it's still fastened down this side. Okay, so this corner pillar is firmly attached to the top piece by some mechanism I can't quite figure out. It's a clip. Okay, easy enough. Now does the top come off? It does not. Oh, and here's the gear train. This was the thing that made the eject button work. So this thing pushed that vertical piece up and down. So this will wind round until it hits the little blank spot in this cog, and then freewheel. Can't imagine what use that will be, but it's going to go into the junk drawers. Big clip here, and here. And I missed a ribbon cable and the earth wire. As one final strain relief. There are no more strain reliefs. Okay, so now we have the top piece, which is almost completely uninteresting except for this button here, which presumably has a spring in it. There it is. Spring. Meanwhile, over here we have the tangle of wires. Ribbon cable, motor cable around a little T-bar. Can't be bothered with that. And it still won't come free because of this stupid ferrite core. Okay. And it won't pull through the other way because of this ferrite core. So this thing must have been assembled by putting the wire in place and then tying the cores together. Well, I'm going to put this aside and chop the thing out later. Apart from anything else, that piece of plastic needs to be broken into smaller pieces. My big box of plastic here is quite full. But now we have a really good look at how this slot works. Here's the print head. Here's a lot of tangled pieces of ribbon cable which are getting in the way. So let's remove them. I can see a dump sponge. So when the head gets cleaned, I think that's a dump sponge. It's wet. When the head gets cleaned, ink is dumped onto this. And I can see spilt ink everywhere. So when I said that it peed ink all over my shelves, this thing will have filled up and then the ink will have overflowed and just dribbled out the bottom. I don't know what this is, but I recognize that clunking noise. This thing used to make that a lot. Meanwhile, over here we have... Huh? That's a bottle. Oh, this is the dump sponge. Oh, gross. That's disgusting. So how does it get the ink from here to here? This pipe. This is a T-piece in the cap of this thing, and this is hollow. And down here I can see that it's plugged into something that has a lot of ink in it. So it must somehow suck the ink out of this thing. Yes, and this is actually quite wet inside. The print head here is the magic thing that makes all the printing happening, or in my case, doesn't make all the printing happen. Complicated gearing stuff that does... I don't know. Here's the belt that moves the print head. This is a piece of transparent plastics strung across. I don't think it's show up on camera. I wonder if that's an optical encoder to let it know how far along it's moved. Okay, let's take this thing apart. I think I'm doing this in the wrong order. There's a plastic clip over the top of that screw. That just... oh, okay. Now that's fallen out. Well, that's interesting. These copper pads here, poker pin connectors. So this is clearly replaceable. And this is in fact the print head. Here you can see the actual head mechanism, which is absurdly tiny. There's one big one which is presumably black and white, and lots of little ones that are presumably the colours. I can actually see that they are slightly different colour. And I bet that all I have to do is replace this and then reassemble it, and this printer will be as good as new. So that's nice. Okay, that's probably full of ink. So this is just the thing that moves the print head along, and it's made out of dense plastic. Again, almost no metal. There's a metal bar here which doesn't seem involved with the print mechanism, and this big chassis here, and that's essentially it as far as I can tell. I mean, there's likely a way... oh, that's unclipped, and that's unclipped. Okay, well, that fell off. Oh look, I found some ink. I think I got that from here. Great. Ah, I know how it comes off. This rail unscrews, and this bit comes off, and I bet this thing... well, it's fallen off the bar, but it is of course still attached to the belt, so that's not helping. Now, here is the motor that moves the belt. Therefore, this side should have the tensioner. And there's a screw. There's another screw. Given the build quality of this thing, having two screws here, this tensioner must be really important. It hasn't actually come free at all. All the screws have fallen out and are now somewhere in the base of this thing. Those two screws, there are slots here, so this is how you adjust the tensioner. And then over here I should just be able to flip the belt off. I said just flip the belt off, Can you make out the grey part? This is indeed a optical encoder strip. So if I unhook it this side, that comes out, which reveals this is where the belt is clamped onto the head. Not clamped anymore. And the mechanism down here is the thing that will read the encoder strip. This is never going to work again. But now at least we've got the PCB board with the nice pogo pin things that I am certainly keeping. Had a bit of a break and have washed my hands. But let's take a look at some of the electronics. Now this thing I thought was a power driver board. I don't think it is. I think this is just a distribution thing that connects this ribbon cable to lots of other things. It's also got a battery on it, which suggests that the main board, which is this, has possibly been alive and suffering while I've been vivisecting this thing. Oh well. There'll be all these plugs out. I will not be short of those little connectors. Yes, there is in fact nothing on the other side. This is just a distribution board for this ribbon cable and a holder for this button cell. Yeah, all the connections are actually labelled. Doesn't say what they do, but they all have IDs. Okay, well, the main board is now disconnected. Although I actually won't disassemble that at this point. Let's go after some of this. More wires looped around plastic things. This does not seem to be very firmly attached, I have to say. There is a single screw here, and I need to disconnect all of these many wires and more of these plastic clips. And this big ribbon cable that went to the print head goes through this metal piece here, through this little plastic clip, and then through the metal here. Well, that seems to have broken mysteriously. There we go. So this bit comes free, and that's a useless chunk of plastic. Okay, here is the big ribbon cable. Move that out of the way, and what do we have here? Quite a lot of plastic machinery and springs. This bit moves. So this is the paper tray. This is where the paper goes in. And the print head moved back and forth this way. But the print head was underneath. So the paper must have come out here. So this is the paper feed mechanism, which suggests that this big round thing here holds a roller. So the paper comes in underneath, comes round inside here, out through here over the print head, or rather under the print head, and I'm trying to remember where it came out. I think it was up here actually, so that does make sense. So there's a couple of screws here, so let's take this thing off and see what happens. And we've got a couple of springs, and no, that's quite a lot of springs actually, and some plastic flappy stuff. Underneath we've got these, which are also connected via springs. I think this is the mechanism that held the paper down under the print head. I seem to have found some more ink. Now I do see that there are some screws in here. Nope, that does not want to come off. Yeah, I think a lot of this is screwed on to this metal stiffening plate. Okay, so yes, let's take a look at the system board. Got lots of these ribbon cables. Ribbon cables, many other connectors. Don't care what they're plugged into. I'm not making notes. That's a chunky wire. That's probably... oh, that's the speaker wire. Speaker is in here. And is of course... oops. What a great speaker noise. I appear to have completely ripped this side of the speaker off. Well, that's annoying. That's actually a proper speaker. Great. So I'm expecting that this thing will have most of the electronics. I still don't know whether the computer is in here or in the screen. Getting a look at the back of this board will reveal a lot of stuff. If I can figure out how to get the thing off. There's a hole there. Bet there's a screw. There's a screw. Okay, what's holding this blasted thing in? Well, there's ribbon cables and there's plastic clips. There's a screw here. Black against black plastic, and the lighting here in my living room is not the best. And because of the camera on this tripod, I don't actually have a very good view of this thing. More wires. Oh, I can feel a big chip on the back. Come on. Unplugged. And I bet that's the computer. What does it say? It's our R9A06G020. So I did go and look it up. All I can tell is it's a Renesas part. It's part of their product line of telecommunications chips and processors. This one does not appear in their product list. It could well be a custom part for a mass-produced device, which this is. I'm going to hazard a guess that it's a microcontroller of some kind, probably a dual-core ARM with lots of I/O, because here we've got the modem, which is very, very simple. So this contains no electronics other than a level shifter. So all the guts will be in here. We've got Ethernet, we've got USB. We also have, I forgot about that, the Wi-Fi chip. So sadly, I think there's nothing really I can do with this, which is a shame, as this will certainly be a thoroughly respectable little computer with tons of I/O, and that looks like RAM. There's some 8-pin chips. Oh, this one is a WinBond 25Q. That's a serial flash chip. I'll have that. Okay. Most of that board is probably going to just go away. We've got ooh, this metal can has Canon written on it. WLAN module, model K30365, and some information. Don't know what's in here. I'll go look that up later. So that's this metal thing, which will probably be, Well, I was going to say an RF shield, but there's no shield on the outside, so it's probably just a stiffener for holding the rest of this thing up. Also slap the PCB on the side of. Feels held in by something. Okay, let's try something else. Now this is a ribbon cable which goes to the USB socket, and there's a little board in here for that. There we go. So this is a largely passive daughter board with a socket on it. No, wait, it's a completely passive daughter board with a socket on it that happens to screw nicely into this metal thing. That's a perfectly serviceable little USB daughter board. So what's that exposed? Well, there's this switch, which I think was the case switch I spotted earlier. And there's some of the gear train here, which is probably moving the paper around. So, belt, encoder strip, just looks grey to me. There's a screw holding a metal thing down. Interesting. It looks like it slides over. Yes, I'm not sure how that works. But I have spotted over here, here are the pipes for the ink dump and a plastic thing. So I'm actually interested to see how the ink dump works. It's probably going to be messy. Aha! Right, this sponge is for soaking up ink. And I think the bottom of this looks a bit wet, so nothing coloured. It's lubricated with something. This is just oil. This that does have ink on it. There's a weird little moving thing here. Yeah, I have no idea what that is. Yeah, this foam is quite heavy. It's impregnated with some kind of lubricant. So it's a bit wet. I think I'm going to put this back in. I think that what we might have here is a mechanism for lubricating some of the works. I wonder, is it supposed to keep the print head wet? And this greasy stuff is supposed to coat the print head and stop it from drying out. That's plausible, but I would like to remove this. It all feels very solid. Okay, there's a screw here, and there's a screw here. Oh, it comes off. And there is quite a lot of ink on this. In little rollers for moving the paper. Yeah, the paper comes out under here. Right, and now that's come off. This thing does feel looser. Is it just clipped down? No, there's a screw. Right, this is the other stiffening plate. Yes, it could be. So you've got one here and one here. And that could well be holding this bit vertical. There we go. And this is one of the ink dump hoses, and it's connected to this. Is that an air valve? Inlet or outlet? It is actually connected up here to this plastic thing, which looks suspiciously like a pump. Okay, well, metal stiffeners are always worth having. So now we can see more of the ink stuff. It connects up here to this thing, but it doesn't. It connects to the... oh, well, that bit comes off. It actually connects to this thing, which is not connected to this. When this moves over here, it pushes this lever, which lifts a little thing here. Oh, and that's interesting. Underneath all of this, there are these absorbent pads and bits of broken plastic. They're clearly expecting it to spill. And I can see along here, is that grease or is that spilt ink? Could be either yellow ink or yellow grease, to be honest. This mechanism is not connected to the rest of it. I mean, it's not part of it. Ah, there's a slider. Wait a minute. Does this move over and then slide? Now it's connected in here somewhere. So there's some mechanism that I need to jimmy before it will come out. This thing. This feels fairly loose. I think it's just clipped on. And I think this is just the guide that held all the wires. And there's a ferrite ring there. So this may come out relatively easily. Wait a minute, there's a screw in there. And there's a screw down here. I have to say, as horrible and as plasticky as this thing is, the screws are all accessible. It would be a miserable job, but you could actually take this thing apart and put it back together again. This does require you to not break a lot of the plastic clips that I have been breaking. And I'm not volunteering to do it either. There we go. And we have a plastic thing with a felt pad and a metal thing clipped to it. You say plastic and metal? I mean metal and plastic. And that has revealed not a lot. Actually, it has revealed this. This is another encoder wheel. So there's a plastic ring and a sensor. And the plastic ring just looks like it's got a grey piece on it, which means it's probably too fine for me to see easily. Now, even through the magnifying glass, it's just grey. So it's either like infrared or really, really fine, and this is more exotic than I was thinking. And that's the speaker cable, and that is the broken off piece of speaker. So it does look like this metal thing is supposed to slide sideways, and then all these clips come undone. But it won't. It's held on with some springs. So let's unhook them. There's one. Oh, there isn't one on that side. Oh, it's in here. I don't think I'm going to be able to get at that one. But I can see here there is a plastic clip. Like so. Ah, I can't reach it. And like so. There we go. Yes. Paper comes along here underneath all these little rollers, and this applies gentle pressure on the paper and keeps it flat. And this goes here, and the print head moves up and down here. One piece of good news that I found doing all this is that the ink does appear to be washable. Okay, what have we got here? That does not feel very firmly put together. Did I break something? I should emphasize that if I did break something, I don't care, but it would be nice to at least find where the real attachments are. It's hinging on something down in there. Yes, I can actually see the other screw that's holding everything down, and it is inaccessible in there. So presumably something in here is supposed to come out. I think all of this unit fits down into the bottom of the case and comes out in a piece. There's a screw here. Oh, and this has all come loose. Kinda. This is the power supply. There's another little plastic clip here that I can't be having with. Broken piece of plastic. Right, the power supply is this brick here, which lives inside this cage, which is all part of this piece of plastic. This is all one piece. So I think this slot might need to come out first. Here's a screw. So I think I may have run out of battery at an exciting moment. But I believe that I have discovered how the ink dump system works, which is it just dribbles the ink into the bottom of the case, which is lined with this foam stuff to absorb it, so that once it dumps enough ink, the ink just sort of dribbles out the bottom of the case onto, for example, the shelving unit that I had my printer on. There's more foam here, more ink stains. Yeah, down here it's all padded with foam. There's another piece. We are making progress in, I should clarify, utterly destroying this piece of hardware. More cables, round plastic things. No longer round plastic things. Right. This is a motor complex. There's a board in here that I think has a switch on it, but we've got one big motor here which used to move the print head back and forth. The belts stretch from here to here. A smaller motor here that may be the print roller, and this thing which could be the ink pump. But there are screws, and screws can be removed, so let's do that and see what happens. That is still really solid. So those screws did not actually help. So I'm slightly running out of stuff to do. So I can see that the metal back plane is screwed onto something on this side, and it is still solidly wedged. There are some clips. Nope, that is still solid. Okay. I don't think this clip is holding it in, but let's... Oh, interesting. This metal thing moved. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting things to be attached to the metal thing and not the other way round. Well, we've got a piece of metal with grease on it. Ah. Okay, that was a little bit energetic, but this has come free. And what we've got is a tangle of wires here that leads to the motor. Fairly thin wires. I wonder what voltage this runs at. Doesn't say, but there's a 3W on it that might be 3 watts. And it's good and heavy. There's a lot of inertia on that. Okay, that motor is definitely worth having. The metal bit, possibly. We've got plastic thing for holding the paper down with little rollers, and I noticed that it's just connected via thin bits of flexible plastic, not very strong. Also, that just catapulted a hard plastic roller at me. This has now exposed this thing in rather more detail. Yeah, I'm convinced that this is supposed to slide. Ah, there's a latch down here. There we go. There's a rack and pinion in here. This is powered. Well, of course, something must pull it. It also occurs to me that the shape of these things here is clearly intended to match the print's head. So this comes along like this, then it squirts ink down these things, which are hard and are possibly porous plastic or ceramic, and somehow it then gets hoovered up by the vacuum hoses. Okay, but this has exposed this screw, so let's take that out. And a screw here. Fairly hefty screw. It's probably holding something in. Okay, and this is exposed this mysterious thing, which has got green liquid in it. Oh, it's a lot of hoses. And the thing here, that I don't know what it does, it seems to be connected to the pump. Well, the pump is uncomplicatedly screwed in. I'm assuming it's a pump. For all I know, it's a flux capacitor. That would explain where the ink is going if it's being sent back in time. Oh. Wait. Where's the other end of this? Also, it's not a pump. Wait, it is a pump. It's one of those squishy peristalsis pump, that's what they're called. And it looks like it's pumping from this. Yeah, this is the other end of the hose. But this has got a plug in it. And the other end is this thing. So it's not connected to anything else. Okay, I'm confused. Right, in here we've got, I think this cog actually made the pump go round. Ah, this is the motor that moves this thing, this motor down here. Yeah, they're very clearly reusing the same motor for multiple things. So it's possible that this still is the motor that makes the paper go round. But one thing I haven't found is anything like a solenoid. Normally on systems that reuse the same motor, the motor goes round. There's a solenoid somewhere that pushes a gear train, basically changes gears, so the motor going round will move a different bit of machinery. Sometimes the motor will do different things depending whether it's going forwards or backwards. But I don't think that's the case here. Well, there's a cog. I think that is a clutch, in that it does one thing. Yeah, I don't know what that's doing. But it's still fastened in with something. What's this thing doing? This is, I think, fastened to the rail that holds this, whatever it is, in. So I might need to somehow get this off Well, here's a spring that could be unhooked. Yeah, you can see in here, possibly you can see in here, there is something that moves up and down. Oh, I moved it too far and it latched. And I see that some of these hoses are connected to a thing here. So I am actually increasingly confused by all the hoses in this. It's got to be something to do with the ink dump, but I don't know what. You see, this is like completely disconnected from anything else. Okay, what's holding this onto the rail? Inertia, apparently. Okay, so what is this thing? This explains a lot. More hoses. Right, so the hoses that come in here actually go underneath and connect to these things. And there are more hoses that go over here and seem to do nothing. Simplify matters by breaking that. And this. Like so. Okay. And this is a optical sensor which this thing runs along the rail, and I think this protruding piece of plastic cuts the beam here and lets the computer know when the print head is in the right position over here. So this should just unclip. Said it should just unclip. Right, this can make a box noise. My box is full. There we go. And this thing, whatever it is still stuck. There we go. Right. And that reveals that this is just as mysterious as it was before. So there's two of these discs. They're covered with this transparent plastic. There's one disc for each hose. So I think it's a sump. The liquid gets sucked through here, and this is a little reservoir. But I just can't imagine why. That's a ratchety thing of some description. This goes on like this. So this thing can move up and down, and that controls whether this moves freely or rotates with the shaft. But this thing in turn needs to get moved somehow. So there is in fact a big complex lump of machinery here in a sealed box. Let's go over to this side, and don't think anything's changed over here. This is the power wire. This comes out of the power supply here, gets looped around a ferrite core, and comes out here. So this is all worth having. If I can get the power supply out, this actually looks like a nice little modular power supply that probably produces 5 and 3.3 volts, maybe just 5, but that's definitely worth having. Aha! So this thing moved up and down like this, and remember there was this piece. So I bet this all interacted with the clutch thing here somehow. It is now much too complicated and disassembled to figure out what, but possibly when the print head was moved over here to the dump position, that pushed that lever in, that changed the gearing and clutch mechanism here, that made the pump or the motor do something else. And there's another thing that moves here. Well, that's hollow. Hoping there might be a screw in there. One thing I do see is there's a little belt here and a little pulley. There is a motor in here. Okay, that's the motor that moves the paper forwards and backwards. So these motors are unrelated. I think this is all part of the ink purging system. Oh, that's the rack and pinion for the rack and pinion mechanism. And that's interesting. There are two little cogs here. This one spins freely. This one's attached to the motor. The track here has got this cutout so that when the bit that spins the motor reaches here, it will move freely, and as a result the head will stop moving. Okay, I'm going to have to start taking out some of these screws, which I've been slightly avoiding because there might be ink in here. Okay, that's just holding this lot together, but it's still solidly attached to the base. Broken plastic. What's holding this? Ah, there's a screw right in there, which I think is inaccessible. Maybe possible to get a screwdriver in underneath all this lot, but I can't with the case in the way. We no longer need this stuff. Ooh, ink stains. And this foam is actually glued down with ink. Right, I think I found my leak. Oh, that's a labyrinth. This is intended to fill up with ink. I mean, it clearly didn't work. There's no ink in any of this. So something just dumped the ink over, well, probably through a vent hole in the bottom of the printer. Yeah. So my belief is that the spent ink was just dumped down here, out of that nozzle. This went in like this, and then it trickled down through foam into the base of the printer, and then there was all of this foam padding to soak it up. But something has gone wrong. In fact, I see dried ink on the rail there. Oh. That just hinges open, and always has. Great. So this is the bit that I thought had the print drum in it. Okay, well, let's expose some more screws. So let's open these and see what's inside. I'm going to guess more plastic. Oh, come on. I undid the screws. You can at least come apart. It looks like this slides sideways and pops out, but it's not popping. The hinges here, this is all one piece, so I can't open this up a bit more. I can see that this white thing is clipped. Oh, not very well. Okay, this is the print roller. There is no actual roller in the print roller. It's just a curved piece of plastic with some... Oh, there are some gears. Ah, here it is. This tiny little gear here meshes here, which turns this, and that pushes the paper round. And is that coming out again? Yes. Okay. And this is held together with more plastic clips. And there are the gears. Well, I'll have the gears out of this. The rest of it's just dead plastic. I mean, the gears are dead plastic. That is a sensor switch to tell it if there is paper in it. Right, now one thing I can see is that this plastic piece, this piece, is not attached to this plastic piece. In fact, it feels like a different kind of plastic. So this is the print mechanism that goes into the chassis. So if I remove the right screws, I should be able to lift this out. I said screws. There's possibly as plastic clips. Oh, that has moved just enough. Can I get this screwdriver in? Yes. Will it turn the screw? Yes. Just. And this bit comes loose, and what we have is a nice little motor with a worm gear, a metal worm gear, that connects to this and rotates all of this appallingly complicated machinery, whatever it does. Oh, and there's another optical encoder on it. Yes, clearly using simple linear motors like this, plus an optical encoder, so that you know what it's pointing at, is cheaper than using a stepper motor, which is what they used to do. So I'm now relatively confident I've got all the ink out. So let's tip this up and see what there is to see. I see screws. Wow, it's so light. I've taken so much stuff out of it. There are not very many screws. In fact, you can see that this unit is a different plastic to this. Oh, also this is the paper tray. Everything here, that is, and just clips in and out. I've left it clipped in because it's an integral part of the base, and it won't sit nicely on the turntable unless it's there. It is super awkward. There we go. Ugh. Piece of plastic stained with ink at one end. Okay, quite a lot's going to fall out when that thing removes. I just noticed up here, this looks like a clip, and this is a different kind of plastic again. So is this actually a lid? Almost looks like a battery compartment. Oh! It's the power supply. It's very light. Okay. Well, that was a find. Right, that's the paper tray. The paper tray is most of the bottom. Okay, I'm going to put that back in so that I can put it back onto the turntable. And has that actually got us anywhere useful? No. Okay, that's interesting. This is grey. It's covered in a slightly tacky, rough substance. Yeah, it's more like sandpaper. This will be presumably to grip the paper. Okay, well, I seem to have done something to make this side of this come up. Do I just need to apply more brute force? Ah, here's a clip. There we go. And this lifts off, and this has got some metal, some gears, and a piece of broken plastic. Spring. Always worth having springs. Okay, I can see the motor in there on its little board. Very thin wires for a chunky motor. Here's another gear actuator thing. Pushing this in pushes this thing down onto a smooth piece of plastic here. Ah, there's a notch there. So as it goes round, it catches. When this thing isn't in place, it moves freely. This is the thing that picks the paper up from the paper tray. These rollers rotate, and there's a gear train in here that moves them, and the paper slides up this smooth piece of plastic and into the works. But what actually holds this together? Well, this is a separate piece of plastic, the rest of it. Okay. And I think these things are what stop it sliding out. So that can get removed entirely. Excellent. My box is full of plastic. This is part of this. So what holds the works in are these clips? They are, you know. I mean, you're not supposed to unclip them like this, but yeah, that's just breaking apart rather than unclipping. Now at least I can see a little better. There's a screw in there. How did I not spot that? There is in fact not a whole lot of stuff left. So the only thing that's holding this in is this rod, and there is something at this end that's holding it in place. Oh, it's the belt. It's hooked around the drive motor. I think there might be too much tension on it to cleanly unhook, but there we go. Right, and now all of that lot comes out, subject to the usual cables. All free. So that can go on the pile. And what do we have left over here? We've got a wire that's presumably going to that switch I spotted earlier, a spring, some foam, more foam, various screws, gear systems, quite a lot of gear systems actually, Okay, I'm still confused about this. This metal plate, there is a screw holding it in that is deep underneath, which is just completely inaccessible unless this thing comes out, and I don't think it does. No, I think it's molded in. Then I don't understand how it got in and out. Actually, that's moving independently of the base. That is a separate unit, but what's holding it in? There's a screw down there. That'll be it. Ah, I should have seen that long ago. And I bet there's another one over here somewhere. There you go. And that comes out, and that reveals the motor, which is quite a small motor. And there's the ferrite bead and the chunky, well, not very chunky wire. These are all 2-wire motors, which means they're not brushless, they're just perfectly ordinary, boring DC motors, which will be useful. So now I should just be able to take out these screws. And there is the motor. Again, it feels nice and weighty. There's a fair bit of mass in the rotor, and socketed, and a nice long wire. This gear wheel is, of course, stupid camera, it lost stuff again. Doing stuff on the dining room table is really not ergonomic. So I can't tell how much got lost, but I did manage to get the paper roller out from underneath, which is this cool little thing. If I put a bit of friction on the rubber wheels, it rotates in this direction, it pushes them round. If it goes this direction, it freewheels. Don't know if it'll be useful, but it is going to go into the junk drawer. There we go. And yeah, this cam rotates and it pushes this thing up and down, which will have something to do with paper feeding. There's a tiny spring on the other side. It is shedding lots of little pieces of plastic. And now I have access to this thing, which is another switch in a little plastic holder. Excellent. So that is now disassembled, apart from the door. Is there anything there I care about? Some gears, I think. No, I actually just think that's a roller. The screw. Okay. I'll call that done. So now let's just go through this waste plastic, because there's some other bits to look at. There's a spring. These tweezers are terrible. Let me get my good ones. Here we go, some proper needle nose ceramic tweezers, and there we have a spring and some broken plastic. There's a bit there that rotates. It's a cam, but I can't be bothered with that. This is part of the mechanism that held one of the doors closed. Nice little springy thing there. I'll have that spring. Dead plastic. Here's the gear thingy. I'll leave that intact. Here's part of the print head, and I do want that PCB. I also noticed that there's a wire here which goes to a couple of tiny glass lenses in there, and I think that is the optical sensor that reads the encoder strip. So as the, which way around did it go? Probably like that. As it slides backwards and forwards, this is the thing that actually keeps track of where it is. And there's almost certainly nothing I can do with that, but let's take a look at it anyway. Okay, so here we have the little sensor on a daughter board. Here we have breakout board, all passives. There's an optical switch there. Interesting. And this has got some slidey things and some springs. Going to be doing well with springs after this. There's a thing there that's screwed on. I'm not sure what it is. It's a piece of plastic. There's a slider that moves up and down, and there's a springy thing. That is a dead piece of plastic with a levery thing and a spring. Paper tray, nothing of interest there. It's all plastic. There's a gear in there to make the paper thing slide in and out, but I don't think I can be bothered disassembling it for that. Power supply I will not disassemble because I want this to work. I did find here it actually says 32 volts, so given that all the wires are one colour except for the white one, I wonder if this is 4 grounds and a 32, or a 32 and 4 grounds. Interesting. But yes, that will actually be useful. Here is part of the paper feed mechanism with an interesting little gear thing and a metal bar. Metal bars are always worth having. They make... Yeah, that wasn't very well fastened in. There we go, dead plastic. And this has these little rubber things on it. Ideal for, you know, the works of 3D printed machines, should I ever make one of them. Dead plastic with some ferrite. Might as well have them. The other side of the print head. Actually, the print head. And I have no idea how these work. So let's unscrew it and take a look. These are the PCBs that push against the pogo pins of this. So this will go in like this and be pushed together via springs. So given that I'm keeping the pogo pins, it's probably worth keeping the PCBs as well. Well, it's covered in ink. Who would have thought? That looks like Phillips, and I've got the Phillips head, but it doesn't feel like Phillips. This is PosiDrive. Doesn't feel much like PosiDrive either. But it does actually go round. If you use the wrong head in the screwdriver, it's very easy to mangle the screw beyond repair, and then you're stuck trying to take the screw out with nothing to get a grip. Okay, that is just plastic. This has ink on it, lots of ink. These tubes are where the ink actually flows in. I have no idea what a lot of this stuff does. Actually, is it these tubes? Yeah, these are heat stapled in, which is not great. And then there's some glue. Ah, and there goes the print head. Right, and this is the internal plumbing that connects the ink pipes to the print head, and then something mysterious happens and it comes out here. Interesting. And there's a chip there, most likely completely useless, but we'll keep it in the junk drawer anyway because it's cool. The one place where I wish they had used screws, they have to use heat stakes. Oh, that's interesting. It's not soldered to anything, there's just even more pogo pins. Ah, right, this is the mechanism that connects the print head to the electronics in the cartridge. This thing pushes against the breakup board over there, then this side pushes on here, and this side pushes on to the print head, and then there's stuff in the print head. Oh god, probably the infamous chip that stops you using the wrong kind of ink cartridge, and possibly a heater to get the ink moving. And then there's this. This is the complicated hosepipe fluidics thing. And there's a lot of gearing. If I turn this, you can see all of this rotates. And there's a lot of complexity in there. I think this might be a bad idea, but I'm going to undo these screws anyway. I want to see what's inside this thing. There it is. Too many screws buried deep inside where I can't easily see them in this environment. Okay. So here we've got the fluidic thing, and rotating this, it does feel spongy. I think it's making very popping, vacuumy sounds. I think that's another peristaltic pump. Peristaltic pump. Meanwhile, here we've got a big gearbox. And some optical encoders. And a metal rod. I can see lines on this one. It's a piece of plastic with a lever on it. And here, oh, that's beautiful. Look at that gearbox. Can I rotate the thing? Here we go. I really hope that's in focus. That's really nice. I have no earthly use for any of it, so I'm just going to pull it apart for the cogs. And that's an optical encoder. That's actually, I can see a lens in there. That's a cut above the simple interrupter encoders. Do I have one? Not immediately obvious, no. This looks more like this thing with the two lenses. I actually wonder, is this just a simple LED and transistor, or is it an I2C thing with a microprocessor? A wire here with a plastic clip. No longer a plastic clip. That's the switch. Okay, and this thing, I want the rod. I think this will just pop out. Yes, I mean it broke some plastic, but it did pop out. And there we have a paper handling rod with a encoder wheel here. That's probably now so bent it won't work. A few gears and this weird rough textured stuff. Interesting. And this has got, oh, it's got stuff. Another rod. Ah, there we go. That's the interrupter of which I was speaking. So you see, it's just a bit of plastic that goes in between there. In fact, there's two. There's another one here. This one's not screwed in. This is just clipped in, which is interesting. Two simple interrupters. That one's got a plug on it. That one's got a daughter board. And here we have another little metal rod, which I think probably slides out from this side. So what holds this piece of white plastic onto this piece of black plastic? I'm going to go with a nasty plastic clip. Is this supposed to go round? No, it was just jammed on. That's a dead piece of plastic. It looks like this went in this way. And then, see, there's a slot here. And then I think this thing was then pushed down and clipped onto it. Or possibly under it? Again, I have to ask myself how they made all this. How were all these little bits of plastic assembled? Well, if I break this clip, that will then move further, and it doesn't actually help. If I bend this, that bit flies out, and it's made up of several rubber crusted rings. Okay, so I think that bit went in last. Now it looks like I should just be able to push here and unclip this, but it's not unclipping. Yeah, that was not how you're supposed to do it, but it does at least seem to be coming apart. And this slides up, and all the cogs slide off it, and it falls to pieces. So that's dead plastic. That's a ratchet. I can't be bothered taking those springs off. Okay, and here's the big fluidic complex. So that's a gear. Well, that's a clutch. Presumably this thing gets rotated by a motor, and then something will push it down and it dogs there, and then when the cog rotates it pushes the rest of the thing around, and I can feel it sort of gummy, which I think is the pump operating. And there's actually quite a lot of bits here. My guess is that these rubber tubes just continue on inside the pump, and there are rollers that go round. That's how peristaltic pumps work. And I would hazard a guess that it's sucking ink through here, probably one hose per print head, through these things, and then out through here. And I noticed that of all the hoses, half have a stripe and half don't, which I'm going to take to mean one head and the other head. In fact, I can see that the hose with the stripe on it goes to this head, which I think is the color head. This is weird. That's completely hard. Okay, I'm not going to fiddle with this for time, but I'm going to keep it. This is too interesting to pull apart here. I'm going to... Good grief, look at my hands. I am going to save that to play with properly on the workbench. Okay, what have we got here? We've got a motor, some bits of metal, lots of cogs, the rack and pinion train for the print head cleaner. I don't want that. And we got this, right, which has another motor complex, some rods, and a gearbox. This, I think, is the thing that moves the paper, maybe? I've kind of lost track of just how many motors there are. These brushes are connected to this piece of foil, which is electrically connected to this, which, if I remember correctly, is where I removed the grounding strap. This is for grounding the paper and removing any excess static charge. I thought only laser printers needed to do that. So in here, I bet there's another stupidly complex gearbox, and I shall remove the screws and destroy it. There we go, there's a gearbox for you. If I rotate this, that's so weird. So the motor drives something up here. Here we go. And if this thing slides, this cog here drops down, so the motor now drives the whole mechanism. This gear train, all it's doing is it's moving the rotation from here to here. We then have a step up or step down for this cog, which is exposed here, which drives part of the paper mechanism, and this one, which drives one of the print rollers. But these three cogs here are replacing a belt. Oh well. And that's that. And then we have these weird little plastic axles. They're quite nice, actually. I'll have them. That pushes on to this metal rod. Is there any friction? Yes, there is. That grips firmly onto the metal rod. Ah, right, it's keyed. That's how it works. I was wondering about that. Anyway, let's have that rod. You realise that the only reason this piece of plastic exists is to save money on this much metal rod. And then there's just the motor, which is another worm gear. Wow, that's a really nice worm gear, actually. It's so smooth that it'll actually work backwards. Pushing this is spinning the motor. I don't know if it's visible, but you can see the encoder wheel here going round. I don't think I can keep that intact because the gearbox is part of this piece of plastic which I want to get rid of. Oh well. And this lifts off, and there's the motor with the nicely lubricated worm gear and a encoder wheel on the other side. That's worth having. And here is the gearbox. Super smooth. It's all plastic, but it's beautifully lubricated. And the only other thing of any interest is the grounding brush, which is just a piece of tape with the carbon brushes on it. So that goes on the pile. This is part of the print roller. Rubber rollers, always useful. More print roller. Hard plastic rollers, always useful. Ah, of course, it's my old friend. Plastic clips. And there's also this hard piece of plastic here that has to come out. Like so. Junk plastic. And over here we have lots of foam, the print cartridges, which are leaking everywhere. Those are just going away. It's a shame. I'd like to play with the ink, but I bet that I never will, and they're just too messy to keep around. We've got a piece of metal with a motor attached to it. You know what? I'm keeping this. Now, where did I put the belt? That seems too big. How about this belt? I think this is more the one. Yes. And this end has a really hefty spring on it, I have to say. There we go. Motor turns. Belt moves. Mainboard. I would say yes, it's worth keeping by someone other than me. I will keep this aside just long enough to nick the flash chip, but then that will go into e-waste. Junk plastic, but I'll have that spring. I've got many flex cables. I've got this USB board, which I will keep. These are the scanner modules. There will be LED strips in these. Oh, and a piece of glass. Okay, keeping that if just for the glass. Here is the other scanner module. Yeah, realistically there's nothing I can do with these, but you never know. We've got big chunky pieces of plastic. Dead. Scanner bed. Real glass. Keep. Until I can figure out a way to get the glass off. It's taped on. I wonder, is there enough of a gap? There is a gap. I may be able to bodge up a hot wire, and I can draw the wire under the glass and cut the tape that way, or just drench it with IPA. Here's the lid. There's some springs. There'll be some gears in here. That's actually a rather fun cam thing. This has that very characteristic solid but squeaky plasticky feel. The actual parts are reasonably rigid, but the hinges and things feel kind of dubious. Well, that looks like a plastic clip. More clips down here. Hooks more like. Okay, that comes off and is dead plastic, and that exposes the gear train, which is quite cool. So let me destroy it. That's a plastic axle with a cog on each end, and then all this stuff just falls apart. That is now dead. Okay, that leaves one remaining piece, which is this. This is possibly the computer. Now there's a big chip here, MB8 AA4661. I looked it up, no idea. This particular part number only appears on these things, so it might be a custom job for Canon. The prefix looks like it can correspond to a whole variety of chips. It's probably a microcontroller and maybe an LCD controller, if this is connected directly to the LCD. Alternatively, possibly the LCD's got its own controller. But let's try and take this apart. It's the right screwdriver. In fact, the wrong screwdriver. Okay. Right, these ribbon cables are attached. Are they the flip up kind? Yes, they are. And on the bottom we have some switches. And here is, these connect to the various buttons. Nothing particularly interesting about them. Of course there are clips. This thing is made out of clips. Revealing nothing, although this is a light pipe. That's the power LED, and that comes from this LED here. This one comes from this LED that's on this side of the board, but they put a hole in the PCB so the light will come through. I wonder why they didn't just put the LEDs on this side of the board. Oh, I know why. All the solder joints are on this side. They didn't need to wave solder this side of the board at all. It's a cost-cutting measure. What do we got here? We've got a screen, which is very probably a completely standard screen with a standard pinout. I can even see this bit sticking out here connects to the screen backlight, and that is attached to this flex cable. Oh, wait a minute. That's a super high density flex cable. There are 2 rows of pins. Yeah. That's a shame. The reason why it's a shame is there's no way I will be able to connect this to anything other than using this connector here. So sadly, this is very likely no use to me. Meanwhile, here we have, I think it may be a resistive touchscreen. I think it feels slightly squishy. Yeah, I think it's a resistive touchscreen. And it's not that thoroughly glued in. Quite thoroughly glued in. Okay, that's dead. So the only remaining part is This motor, which is thoroughly comprehensible, it's a motor. A few of these. This little gearbox that I might as well keep as a gearbox, although I'm not sure it does anything terribly useful. This motor and gearbox, which has a optical encoder ring and the worm gear. This board, which is worth throwing in the junk drawer, and the big glass slab. And I think that's it. Oh, I nearly forgot. This thing. I looked this up. This is a standard Wi-Fi module that Canon use for a lot of printers. I couldn't find any description of what's inside it, but a different module with very nearly the same number has an off-the-shelf Marvel Wi-Fi chip in it. So this is probably the same. If I can find out what it is, it probably speaks SDIO or maybe even USB, but chances are I won't. I may be able to flog this off on eBay for about a tenner. So here you have it, my printer as disassembled as I could possibly make it. Out of this enormous pile of debris on my dining room table, I have gotten a handful of interesting parts, including some motors, a lot of screws, some sensors, some switches, a working power supply, some stuff I need to play with later, some stuff I need to disassemble later, lots and lots of plastic gears, surprisingly few bits of metal, that is really surprisingly few, so much of this is made out of plastic, a lot of plastic, which I now need to get rid of, and a great deal of emotional satisfaction because I really hated this printer. So, that's that. No clever conclusion or anything. I now need to bag up all the waste plastic and other stuff and take it to e-waste. The rest of it will go in my junk drawers, and now I'm going to go away and crudely slap together this video in the editor. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you all next time.